All right, welcome back from the break, everyone. Thank you so much. So now you've heard from me, you've heard from the director of the National Fitness Foundation and many of our other federal colleagues. But now the most important part of the meeting is the council members themselves. And so this discussion, I really hope, will be informative to everyone out there and also for this council to come together and think about all that they've heard, given all the priorities and what they want to do going forward. So to start, though, I'd like to take just a few minutes for, if we can do it in a minute or less. I know there's you all have very rich histories, but I'd love for you each to have an opportunity to let everyone here get to know you. And I have had the pleasure of speaking with these individuals over the last couple months, and they are extraordinary. And I know that you will all realize that as well after we have an opportunity to go around the table. So if you could just all share what you think is the unique perspective that you individually bring to the council, that would be wonderful. So Jose, let's start with you, please.
All right. Thank you very much for helping us go through an amazing, informative meeting, and I think making all of us more aware of the amazing work the different people in government, the amazing things they do every day to make things happen. Long story short, my name is Jose Andres. I'm a cook. I always say I'm a cook that feeds the few, and in the process I've been trying to be part of being a cook, feeding the many. And for me, coming to Washington 30 years ago was an eye-opener, especially seeing how a little business that this month we are celebrating 30 years, Jaleo, could be in a way partnering with a local NGO. In the process, you could be partnering with different parts of the government, and all of a sudden, you are not fixing every problem we have, but you start finding certain areas where you can, one decision and one small action at a time, just be improving our communities.
Nadine.
Good afternoon. My name is Nadine Gracia. I'm the president and CEO of Trust for America's Health. The perspective that I believe I can bring to the council is public health and how to help improve the health of communities and populations at large. I come to this with a real passion for health equity, being the daughter of courageous parents who left our family's home country of Haiti to bring greater opportunity to our family. And so for me, it's an opportunity to see the council really accelerate addressing access to resources and opportunities so that everyone can truly be as healthy as possible.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alana Myers-Taylor. I'm an Olympic medalist in the sport of bobsled. So I think the unique perspective I bring to this is I've worked for a number of years with the Women's Sports Foundation to promote access to sports and fitness for women and girls in all sports. So that's my personal background, but also as a mother of 2 disabled sons, providing that opportunity for accessibility, particularly for fitness and sports for the disabled community. And also, now that we had a briefing from Natural Parks, what actually accessibility looks like in a winter sport, in a winter climate space.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Meg Ham. I'm the president of Food Lion, which is a local grocer in 10 states operating 1,108 stores. And our passion is nourishing our customers and setting them up for success in life. And we often say we are the towns and cities we serve. That's because we know you, because we're like you, we live down the block from you. And so when we talk about meeting you where you are, we meet our customers where they are and know firsthand the struggles that there are with understanding the awareness and the education around nourishing and nutrition, and also we believe no one should have to choose between dinner and rent or gas and groceries, and we do tremendous work with our platform of Food Lion Feeds to feed those who need it today and also provide them ways to continue to nourish their families as we move forward. So that's the perspective I bring.
Hi, I'm Allison O'Toole. I am the very proud CEO of Second Harvest Heartland, which is part of the Feeding America Network. We're one of the largest food banks in the country, based in the Twin Cities in Minnesota. In addition to distributing more than about 130 million pounds of food this year, We are also investing millions of dollars in SNAP outreach and enrollment, and also have a prepared meals program called Kitchen Coalition now, which is a version of DC Central Kitchen, which we saw today, a little bit different model, but certainly inspired by that work. We also were one of the first food banks in our network to adopt what we call Moonshot, which is essentially with the president's goal to end hunger by 2030. We're going to do it the Minnesota way, of course, but have adopted that, and we are going big. We have some of the worst racial disparities in Minnesota, and so we've got a lot of work to do in that space, and are really committed to doing that and looking to raise the resources and the awareness and all that. Really happy to be with all of you.
Hi, I'm Jose Garces, entrepreneur, Iron Chef, James Beard Award winner, but also just a cook. I'm sometimes known as the other Jose, so I'm glad to be in the same room with Jose. So I also have a foundation I started about 11 years ago called the Garces Foundation in Philadelphia. We helped the underserved immigrant community in Philadelphia through three main programs, community health days, food pantry programs, and English classes to really help this community. So I believe a lot of these things, the work we've been doing for the last 11 years really ties into the work we're going to be doing as a whole. So I'm really looking forward to helping out and being part of this great panel. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Billy Shore. I'm the founder and executive chair of Share Our Strength and our No Kid Hungry campaign. We focus on childhood hunger and nutrition, principally here in the United States, although we do a little bit of work internationally. I think the most important thing that we try to get across is that in this country, at least, hunger and nutrition issues are solvable problems. We have no shortage of food. We have no shortage of healthy food, and we have no shortage of food programs for folks who are eligible, but we have a lot of barriers that stand between people who need those programs and that assistance and their ability to get it. And so we're about kind of knocking down those barriers, and we try to help people understand that it takes more than food to fight hunger. Whenever we think of hunger, we reflexively think about food, but really solving hunger and getting to the root causes of why families deal with hunger and poverty in this country is a very different set of issues.
Hi, I'm John Feynman, CEO of Intercity Weightlifting. I think the perspective I bring is the way that sports and fitness can be used to flip power dynamics and bridge social capital, creating this really authentic connection that allows people to value each other's shared humanity and understand each other's circumstance and the environmental factors that people have to navigate, so that we ultimately remove blame from an individual, instead focus on what an individual has to navigate, centering that person's truth as our own perspective.
Hi, I am Tamika Catchings, and I think unique perspective, WNBA, former WNBA player, gold medalist as well, and my sister and I, we actually co-founded the Catch the Stars Foundation. We focus on underprivileged youth, boys and girls ages 7 to 18. We provide programming around fitness, literacy, and youth empowerment. And so this is right in my wheelhouse. And then also that's a non-for-profit. And then kind of our arm from that is Tease Me Cafe, which we opened up or took over in 2017. So when you start thinking about all of the things that this council is going to be doing, I am so passionate about making sure that our kids, especially underrepresented areas, black and brown communities, have access to the same things that everybody, that not everybody, but same thing that, or the things that they should have access to. So that is my passion.
Good afternoon. My name is Kim Ang. I'm the general manager of the Miami Marlins. Sports and fitness can be foundational pillars in our lives to achieve a great sense of self-worth, self-esteem, belonging, and accomplishment. As an amateur athlete myself, I played intercollegiate sports, and I was able to employ all of that, and also through my 30 years of my career. I think my unique perspective is seeing athletes and sports participants at their most elite level, as well as my work in the commissioner's office, where we were just trying to get kids to participate. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Oluwafermi Oyedeji Alkalami. People call me Dr. O for short, as you can see why. I'm a physician, an athlete, and a disability advocate. About 10 years ago, after being an academic All-American and captain and athlete at Stanford University, medical school graduate, Michigan, I was in my third year of orthopedic surgery residency at Yale, and I experienced a spinal cord injury, which paralyzed me from my chest down. And it was at that point that I saw how inaccessible our world is, not just the health system, but the entire world is for individuals living with disability. And I knew what sport had provided me throughout my life, and it's more than just playing sport. And that inaccessibility of this world has then led to exacerbated health disparities for the disability community. So as a physician, trying to make sure our health system and all of our systems are as accessible to and inclusive of disability as possible, that's why I'm honored to be on this council.
Hi, I'm Maribel Campos Rivera. I am a professor at the University of Puerto Rico, a pediatrician, neonatologist, and obesity medicine specialist. I'm also the founder of the Center for Community Outreach for Health Across the Lifespan, where we teach our residents and students and assist communities in performing community-based participatory research to develop service programs and also research work. Currently, we implemented our Semilla program. It's a STEM+M program supported by NIGMS, where we teach health agency to middle schoolers with the support of undergraduate graduate students. I'm also celebrating my 10 years of breast cancer treatment and the mother of a neurodiverse child. And I could say that the best year of in-house academic achievement was when I was diagnosed with cancer. And my first action to take was improve my physical fitness. Because to undergo double mastectomy, I wanted to make sure I could get myself out of bed. And we started a family-based program, and his academic achievement that year was the best ever. So I want to promote that for every child I'm come across with.
Hi, my name is Tina Flanoy. I am, number one, very honored to be a part of this council. Very excited about the work we're going to be doing. And also, I wanted to say how informative and interesting yesterday's partners meeting was. So thank you very much for that. I will say briefly that I'm the former of a lot of things, and all of them have been very interesting and have given me the opportunity to learn a lot and also to focus on the power of working together with as many partners as possible. And the fact that there are not intractable problems, there are really difficult problems in life and in the world, but there are not problems that can't be overcome if we are able to work together and to harness what we all bring to the table. And that's what I'm looking forward to doing here. Thank you.
My name is Martin Inglesby. I'm the head basketball coach at the University of Delaware. I was a former collegiate basketball player at Notre Dame, not as good a one as Tamika, but and I've been in college athletics for 20 plus years. I coach 18 to 22-year-old young men, but we start the recruiting process a lot earlier. So I'm excited to kind of amplify our messaging from today with our youth and talk about nutrition, the importance of how that fuels your body, and kind of take it from there.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ben Jacobs. I am a member of the Osage Nation of Northeast Oklahoma, but I reside in Denver, Colorado, and I am the co-owner, co-founder of Tokabe, an American Indian eatery based in Denver, which is a restaurant focused on Native cuisine and sharing Native community and culture at the same time, and also co-owner and co-founder of Tokabe Indigenous Marketplace. My passion, purpose, and unique perspective I believe I bring to this team is my commitment to not only accessibility, but supply chain development, making sure that we have our community members specifically not only having access to food, foods that they need, but also traditional, culturally relevant foods that are not only nutrient dense, healthy and impactful, but are spiritually and culturally meaningful at the same time. And I believe that we all, as a organization and as a group together, can all meet those same goals in the communities we're working with.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dari Mozaffarian. I'm a cardiologist. I have a doctorate in public health, and I've led the Tufts School of Nutrition for about the last decade, and now launching a new Food as Medicine Institute at Tufts. And my work and career is focused on nutrition as kind of one of the big solutions for all of the metabolic health and health equity and other problems of our time. And there are real systems solutions that are needed. And so I bring expertise in sort of thinking about systems change and policy change. 93% of U.S. adults are metabolically unhealthy, 93%. And so the system is broken. And so we need system solutions, not relying on individual people or blaming it on the individual. And I think that some of the perspectives and system solutions I hope we can focus on is food as medicine, thinking about nutrition security, thinking about the first 1,000 days of life, and thinking about healthy aging and longevity. And I'm going to channel Chef Jose Andres, who says, you know, for too long, food has been part of the problem. And I think food is truly the biggest solution for health equity, for lowering healthcare spending, for business innovation and jobs in the economy, for preserving our water, soil, and other natural resources, and for military readiness. And so if you put all that together, this is actually the single biggest opportunity on our plate, and I hope we can take advantage of it.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Stephanie Shaheen, and first I just want to say how humbled I am to join you all on this council. I know we're going to make a lot of good trouble together, and I very much look forward to the work ahead. I come to this work as a mom of a daughter born with, who was diagnosed with a chronic disease at age 8. It's not a diet-related disease in as much as it's a diet-impacted disease because she lives with type 1 diabetes, and everything she puts in her body impacts what happens to her blood sugars in immediate time. And that really was the inspiration for me launching a company called Good Measures, which brings food as medicine solutions to life and makes it possible for people to make personalized, real-time decision-making relative to what they're eating, when they're eating it. And we actually have some very innovative partnerships underway now, which I'm excited to expand as a result of this work and all that we're going to learn in the next couple years together. I also just have to say that some of my takeaways from the last 24 plus hours at this point are that mental health actually is physical health. Those two go together. Food is medicine. We've talked about that already, and we're going to keep talking about that. Access is really everything. And at the end of the day, I look forward to identifying what priorities we can mobilize around and really get to work. I think our chair has demonstrated what it looks like to put words into action, and I can't wait to work with you all to do that.
Good afternoon. I am Viviana Martinez Bianchi. I am a family doctor. Family medicine has been my vehicle for social justice. Taking care of people of all ages in the home, in the community, in the clinic and the hospital has driven me to go outside of the clinic into the public health sector, into that intersectional space between primary care and public health. Because I have seen first, with people coming into my office, the impact of nutrition, physical fitness, language, and so many other barriers, so many of those structural, intersectional things that happen to people every day. And I can see the approach that we as health system and family physicians, but all members of healthcare teams can take in engaging communities in multi-sectoral collaboration. So the invitation to be part of this council really knocked at a space of passion for me and humility, seeing the amazing work that many of you have done. I think I may be the only one without a Wikipedia page at this point. But I look forward to bringing the perspective of being an immigrant, of taking care of multiple immigrants. I have been a doctor in both in rural Iowa and in academic settings. I'm at Duke in the Department of Family Medicine and Community Health, and I'm director for health equity there. I hope to bring to this conversation what we see in the clinical care and how we can connect with our communities. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kahina Haynes. I am a behavioral and social intervention evaluator. I am also a former professional ballet dancer, and I proudly serve now as the executive director at the Dance Institute of Washington, right here in Washington, D.C. And I think it's no surprise the perspective I bring is the incredible power and potential of the dance industry to deliver on some of these pillars. It is mind-blowing. I'm obviously very passionate and excited about it, but quite literally, we're talking about disparities and we're talking about statistics that are incredibly just devastating and sobering. But what I keep hearing is that there are consistently populations that are meeting sort of the bottom tier or are responsible for some of the lowest outcomes. Those populations are actually overrepresented in the dance industry and sector. And language matters, so let me say when I talk about dance, I don't necessarily mean the codified technical. I mean dance as in movement paired with rhythm, like our heartbeats are all dancing. We're all dancing right now, so our hearts are beating. So I really, really think there's tremendous, tremendous potential. A lot of what I heard in the meeting yesterday, gamification, different types of innovative ways to achieve some of the core goals of this council. Dance just kept coming at the forefront. There's gamification of dance right now with TikTok, right? It's like a third of the population TikTok users, and we're seeing what dance is doing for fitness across that platform. So just incredible potential, and being an expert in that field, I look forward to bringing that and collaborating with you all.
And we have sorry, I have to turn around, but we have our virtual participants, so I'd like to take an opportunity for them to speak. Brian, why don't we start with you?
All right. Hello, everyone. First, let me start by saying this is an extremely humbling and I'm very, very honored to be serving on this council with you all. This is just a great thing for me. My name is Ryan Howard, former Major League Baseball player with the Philadelphia Phillies. The perspective that I look to bring to this is, one, just continue to just work with you all to be able to learn from all these different aspects of what everybody's able to bring to the table. I, having the baseball background, would definitely look to bring that athlete's perspective into how important the physical fitness as well as nutrition play a huge, huge factor. As it's been said before, the mental side of things go with the physical side of things. So looking to try to bring that to the table as well as just to continue to learn from everybody.
Thank you. Barbie?
Buenas tardes a todos. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Barbie Izquierdo. I am the Director of Neighbors Community Engagement at Feeding America and the 2022 Global Citizen Prize Award winner for my work demanding equity. But first, I am a proud mom and activist, a Philly native, but a Florida resident. I'm someone who has shared my personal journey with hunger publicly to center on uplifting the voices and needs of people with lived experience and expertise of poverty and food insecurity. And my goal is to raise awareness to bring equity into all spaces that I'm a part of. I want to represent my community and communities with lived experience to address their social determinants of health that affect their lives every day. I aim to continue empowering and inspiring others to share their story and insight to impact systemic change, focusing on a paradigm shift that gives the community power over the decisions that are usually made for them. I want to address things like nutrition, accessibility, affordability, and resources to avoid being food insecure. And ultimately, I hope that my perspective as an Afro-Latina growing up in poverty ignites policy changes and increases collaborations for others to join and to continue to be involved in the movement to end hunger by 2030 in whatever capacity they can. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. And Melissa?
Yes, hi everybody. My name is Melissa Stockwell, and I am just kind of in awe of hearing all of your accomplishments. I wish I could be there with all of you today. So I am an above-the-knee amputee. I lost my leg almost 20 years ago while serving in the military over in Iraq. So have a personal perspective on living life as somebody with a disability. And I have a nonprofit, co-founded a nonprofit called Dare to Try, where we get athletes with physical disabilities into sports. So realizing the importance of sports, not just in someone with a disability, but in anyone's life, and just the positive impact it can have. And then also, as a mom, I have 2 kids who are 5 and 8. The school lunches hit home. Just knowing that my kids do get a nutritious meal when they go to school. So just kind of as a mom, adding in that nutrition component, as an athlete with a disability, that accessibility part of it, and just the importance of sports in really anyone's life.
Thank you so much. The way this room is set up, you are to my back. So I'm going to, as we have our discussion, rely on my council members who can see them when they raise their hand. So we will keep you in the discussion. And feel free to speak up. I just don't have an owl neck, so sorry. But thank you all for just sharing your perspective with us. I think, as you can see, you all bring such a rich and unique and diverse perspective. And I think collectively and individually, you all have such an opportunity to make a difference on this council. And so what I'd like to do today is just really dive into some questions about what we are going to do and how we're going to do it. And so my first question to all of you, you've heard a number of the priorities, for the council from the executive order as well as from the national strategy on hunger, nutrition, and health. And so how would you like to use the platform of the President's Council to inspire communities to create supportive environments that foster access to healthy foods and physical activity? This can be a very open dialogue, so, Yeah, how would you like to use, oh, sorry, yeah, she was asking
You
to
can repeat it.
No, go for it.
Yeah, so I think one of the most obvious ways the council could work and use our platform is that awareness piece. We all have different communities we're all connected to, and a very diverse set of communities. And I think just that awareness piece of all of us sitting on this council and taking the information and the importance of our objectives back to our home communities, and then broadcasting it out, whether it's through social media or whether it's through even just email channels, blogs, any of those types of resources that we all have, can help raise that awareness piece that some of our panelists had spoke about earlier.
Great, thank you.
So for me, that raises a great question, which is, how much should we be thinking about doing what you've just described kind of individually and with our own platforms versus as a council? Are there times where we could make a statement together, or we could put out an op-ed or visit a community, some subset of us or something like that? I don't know if the council's previous history informs those possibilities at all. But those are some of the questions in my mind, is what can we do as a group in addition to what can we do individually?
So yes, 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 yes. I think, there's all of these opportunities. I mean, using social media, writing op-eds. I mean, we have lots of opportunities to collectively work together. And so, your expertise in the audiences that you reach and the communities that you're in, and bringing that to us. I mean, the federal government develops a lot of programs and policies, and, we're looking to our partners, all of you, to help us amplify those programs. And so,
at the end, in the last 10 minutes, we heard a lot of personal stories.
Yeah.
We need to tell our stories. We need to be the voices of the other people, that they have stories and maybe they don't have the reach that we all have. So we really make it more inclusive. I mean, Bill, I was 23. I joined his organization, SOS, and he brought me to different communities around DC. Doing what? The same thing my mother told me, how to make food with leftovers. I didn't realize that me learning from my mom how to make croquetas with leftover breadcrumbs and leftover eggs is something I could be sharing with communities that didn't have the same opportunity of learning how to cook like I did from my mom. Those stories that you all have in your different areas is very important, is storytelling, and amplifying the storytelling of others.
Amen. Yeah.
I think we just came out of a pandemic that saw severe inequities, and at the same time saw the opportunity of the creation of intersectoral collaborations. As a Latina who worked really hard to get the Latina community tested and vaccinated in North Carolina, I discovered the wealth of knowledge for the community to care and take care of themselves through that work. That even though health systems and government had not yet reached the community was working together to take care of each other. They were doing food drives. They were cooking together to do fundraising to help others who were sick. I think we have the opportunity of leveraging and working in each one of those communities, seeing what is it that they're doing, taking a look at the nutritional value of often immigrant foods that don't normally make it into the mainstream, but they are often much healthier than some of the options that our non-immigrant communities eat, and see where we can go with at least some of those ideas. I also worry often about the number of people that live in that space in the society that is unseen or unheard unless you listen with your heart and you watch really what's happening, and that they have voices, but but who is listening is the problem. Who we have to allow those voices to come up into the surface and share with us how do they think we can help them to be more fit, instead of us telling them this is what you need to do.
I keep struggling with wanting us to be bold and embrace this responsibility we collectively now have. The President of the United States asked us together to help people be more healthy. That is an incredible responsibility and opportunity. And yet we also have to figure out practically what does that mean? What can we do? How many people can we touch? And so I have this, this push and pull of wanting to be thinking very, very big and bold, and yet also practically speaking, how much can we collectively do where and when we have the opportunity? And one thing that feels bold is language, and the language we choose to adopt and use. And I mean, you cited a few things earlier. Mental health is physical health. Obesity can also mean malnutrition. Food can also mean medicine. We heard Barbie reference social determinants of health. Collectively adopting language that reflects what's really going on and doesn't leave people out. We reference diet-related disease and we talk about diabetes. There's a lot of different kinds of diabetes. There's a lot of stigma attached to diabetes. We collectively have a responsibility to try to break down those stigmas and not reinforce misinformation or poor language. So that is one way we can model in a bold way what we want people to repeat and to adopt. But I'm also still looking for those practical, let's roll up our sleeves, what else can we do in community to really make a difference?
One thing that I think about is just simplicity. Like, we are all great in what we do individually, and I know we come collectively to do something big, but I'm big on partnership. I'm very big collaborative efforts, right, as we all are, otherwise we wouldn't be sitting here. But to your point of thinking bold, thinking big, I kind of like, okay, when we leave and everybody goes back home, how do we do something like that? So the first thing that I always think about is like, Jose just said everybody has their own individual stories, but how do we collectively take the story that we have and maybe break it down based on the three different parts that we're really focusing on? One group take this, one group take this, one group take that, and then we're able to have smaller group meetings, and then when we come back collectively, we can discuss, and then everybody can tag in and tap in to all the things that we've talked about. But I just feel like I'm like, the question overall, I get overwhelmed, but when you start simplifying, it's like, okay, well, I'm very interested in this part. Accessibility is definitely something, having all of our kids is my passion, but everybody having access to resources, whether it be a gym facility they can go to, whether it be a grocery store, food desert that we live in, that we all have access or have seen. those are areas that, personally, like, I want to lock into that, disability awareness, like, those are areas that, I was born with a hearing disability as well, so finding your areas that you want to focus in, making it simplify it, and then let's figure out who wants to do what, and then simplify.
I love that. We'll do Nadine and then Melissa.
I just wanted to go back to a point that Viviana, that you shared with regards to where we are having emerged from the pandemic, and that we're really at this vulnerable point in which communities either enhanced partnerships that already existed during the pandemic, or they built new partnerships. And we're at a vulnerable point where for some communities, they're going to continue those, and for others, because of lack of resources and access, they may not be able to continue those partnerships. And I think what we saw from the federal panel of having a multi-departmental panel of representatives, and then what we bring to the table with regards to both our individual expertise and experience in sectors, but the collective experience, is how we actually can help support the communities to continue the type of multi-sector engagement that they have, because the next health threat is coming. And so how we actually help to strengthen and support communities to be healthier, to be more resilient, I think this is a critical moment that the council can actually have voice to helping to support that need and address the longstanding inequities that we all know existed well before the pandemic.
All right, I think I was next. I just have a general question, and my apologies if I missed it or not being there if this was discussed. But if so, maybe just the Clip Note version. What measures success? Like, yes, we want to spread the message, we want to spread our voice, we want to get in front of these communities. But is success getting the word out? Is success, having one more gym become an accessible gym? Is it putting on a health workshop for a community? Like, I guess what, as far as the council goes, defines that we are being successful in what we're doing?
I don't have an answer to that question, but I wanted to follow up on it because my brain is going in sort of the same direction, and I guess I have a broader question. Do we want to be specialists or do we want to be generalists? And here's what I mean by that. Yesterday, as I said, sitting in the partners meeting was incredibly informative for me, and for the folks who have been working in this space for a long time. The issues that you talked about and the problems that you identified are certainly known to you. They are things that you work on. In many ways, though, it seems that there's so many different parts of the bigger problem. And how do you get to a solution around the bigger problem without ignoring the component parts of the bigger problem? You can't, because you have to deal with it. But where does that leave you in terms of energy, resources, focus? And that goes to this question of measure of success. Success has many measurements, of course. But as a council and just generally as people who care about these issues, who care about health and human beings, where do you bring it together in a way that allows you to be effective? Because there's so many different avenues, so many different issues that all are part of the bigger problem. I don't know, I'm raising a question to which I don't have the answer, but since yesterday and today, this is the same issue that's been spinning around in my head.
I want to build on just the prior two comments. I've been thinking about the same thing. So looking back, right, this council has been around in one form or another for 77 years. And so we don't have the counterfactual of if that hadn't happened, maybe things would be much worse. But I would say, full success has not happened, to put it lightly, right? Things are in many ways worse than they were 77 years ago, particularly for food or nutrition. Physical activity may be better, more awareness, more people exercising, but certainly nutrition is worse. So that's daunting, right? We have 77 years of history before us and didn't really win the battle. So what can we do to change that trajectory? We're not going to win it, but what can we do to change that trajectory? I think we really should step back and look at what has happened in the last 77 years, what worked, what didn't work. So I think that's one thought I had. And then the second thought I have is that this is really a special moment to think about lifestyle and health in our country. And I think it's a combination of COVID-19, which really just let everyone realize that the food system is broken, our health system is broken, there's incredible health disparities, stuff that was all there, but the public and policymakers and business leaders all see it now in a way they didn't before. And then the White House conference and the Biden-Harris administration, we have a really special administration and a special moment in time. So we don't want to lose this moment. We don't know that this will be here 5 years from now or 4 years from now. So those are just two thoughts I have to build on. I don't have answers, but those are my thoughts I have sitting here.
Reach. Oh, go ahead.
So I think, no one's choosing to be unhealthy over healthy. No one's choosing not to play over being able to play, but things are getting in the way. So I think part of it is understanding what are those barriers, find the partners, resources, recommendations to overcome those barriers or address those barriers. And I think the other part is then how do you make it relevant to people? Who's defining what exercise, what fitness, what nutrition is? And kind of what you're saying, some communities have taken over what that's going to be, but now they don't have those resources. We shouldn't be dictating some specific curriculum. Maybe that's part of it, but we should also be helping to adapt that curriculum to make it relevant for each person, for each community. And I think that's an incredible way to maybe define what success is what are the bare bones, but then how can this also adapt to meet people in their needs and what they see as success?
Oh, can I jump in? Sorry. What is in my mind too is that we've got 2 years to do this, so I'm nothing if not practical, which means we have to hustle. I think the environment is going to get political on us, so we have to hustle faster now. But part of what, in my mind, success is accelerating other initiatives that are already going. So I think about the White House, I'm a food bank. I'm not a food bank, but I lead a food bank. So that White House conference on nutrition and that big goal, why don't we amplify that? Like if we're going to pick, I appreciate, Tamika, what you're saying, simplify, but what else can we accelerate? We don't have to generate this whole new body of work necessarily. We could, I'm sure, but what can we accelerate in our short amount of time?
Yeah, just building off that for me, you take big complex problems, and this is a big complex problem, and how do you break it down into pieces, and how do you focus and be able to make a difference and put one foot in front of the other that then can build the momentum to move even faster. And I think it would be breaking it down and then figuring out what we can leverage that's already moving and that we can accelerate it. So I think of a big complex problem, how do we break it down, kind of like Tamika said, in 3 different ways, and then what's already moving that we could accelerate, and that then can give us the time and the space to be able to build on the success that we have one step at a time.
I will take that note and bring attention, because one of the calls to action was awareness. And in that part, awareness also, for me, represents all of us being aware that even when we talk about the food security programs, they're not implemented at source in the same way for all citizens of this nation. So I would say that would be a first, we could start. And I'm very happy that you brought up dance, because beyond being a very attractive and relatable source of movement, for culturally speaking, it's also a source of healing. And for me, when we go to dance, I think of bomba, and I'm sure that others in the room can relate to that, which historically has been acknowledged as a way of the community coming together to heal, to overcome whatever has happened, particularly us that have been hit by disasters over and over again. That's when people come together and then make up a plan to build their community back up. So we need to support that as well.
Just kind of bouncing off what everyone was saying and really referring back to Jose's original point, I think working in underrepresented and disadvantaged communities, more than anything, what we can bring back is I think far too often in those types of communities, the communities that we represent, feel unheard and that they don't have the voice. And I think it's really important for us to be the ears and for them to be the voice. And then we are the megaphone and the projection of that voice as a group when we come together, because it is our goal and our mission to hear what they want to see change in their communities and what they'd like to see, and then help amplify that. And what I see coming together, and we all have our unique experiences and specialties, but coming together, it feels like a juggernaut. And what is success? I think we all want to see this massive success, but referring back, it's been going on for 70 years and steps are small. But I already kind of feel small levels of success just having the conversation, speaking to one another, and actually seeing how our resources pulled together can impact the voices that want and need to be heard. So I feel like that is incredibly important, what we can help develop and bring back those bits of change, because they're the ones on the ground every day doing the work, and we can be here to really amplify their needs, their desires, and what they want to see change in their own lives and communities.
So this is Dr. O. I'm also very practical, and I'll even say that this is hopefully bold but not too challenging. I've been having this same conversation throughout the week, and I've spoken to some of you out there about, at times, my concern that I'm not quite sure what sort of opportunity we truly have. But I'm going to call upon my team captain of a track team and my family medicine physician background to then make an analogy. As a captain of a track team, every single person does an event. So what success looks like is not one of you, but it is how well all of you do. And so I truly think that the opportunity that exists as a council is that we just have to be intentional about working with each other. Because yesterday's meeting, there were plenty of funders, there were councils and organizations, and everyone was trying to come around sort of one thing. I don't think that that's possible. I actually think that we are intentional about identifying specific things that we can do that will then lead to the nation's health. The reason why I also made the family medicine corollary is that we got cardiologists here, family physicians here. A patient's health is not just the cardiologist caring about the heart. It is about every single individual caring about whatever part they then have expertise in, and then that leads to a healthier human. So I think that we, and everyone that is here, we just need to be intentional about identifying the spaces and places where we do have influence, and hopefully being willing to call upon each other and support where we have the influence and the resources to do so. Resources not always being financial, but there are resources that we can share with each other that people are here at this meeting wanting to share as well, and leveraging the platform of the President's Council to be able to then disseminate those individual aims, which then lead to the sort of the greater whole's health.
So this just brings me to another question. I mean, I'm hearing, being the ears and the mouthpiece for other communities and storytelling. So I'd love to know just, if we could think about, like, how do we tell these stories in a way that resonates and that audiences that we need to hear these messages can hear? So I don't know if, collectively, if there's a way we want to tell the story that you think would be impactful and meaningful. I'd just love to hear some thoughts on that if anyone has any. Sorry, go Barbie.
Okay, this is where I'm most passionate, is the ethical engagement of communities with lived experience that have been marginalized or who face these disparities every day. So I think when we're talking about representing them, listening to them, one of the most important parts of that is building the relationship. So making sure that these communities trust us, making sure that what it is that they're telling us, we're saying it in the ways that they want, that we're protecting their privacy if that's something that is important to them as well. But to make them feel a part of something, even if they are not the exact council member, but that they feel like their input matters, their suggestions have been heard and implemented, to be mindful of how we show up in these rooms, to not make promises that we can't keep, but to also make sure that we show them that what they're saying has been taken under consideration, and ultimately that we care, that we are approaching them with empathy and compassion. And like Dr. O said, you know, whatever resources we may have or platforms or ways that we can uplift them and show them that we know they have been facing systemic barriers, as many of you have said, for over 70 years. So we need to acknowledge that. We need to acknowledge the things that have been going wrong before we can move forward, so that people can feel like their emotions are validated. I mean, that are valid, that their experiences are validated, and that they can be a part of something bigger. Because just taking their stories or extracting their experiences from them, and then they not having that relationship aspect of it is something that has been done historically. It doesn't help people from the communities where I've been trust the government. So I think the first thing that we can do is show them that they really matter, to whatever extent that may be. It may be just listening. It may be having them lead a conversation, having them open up events, not just be featured as subject matter experts, but to be the cornerstones of this movement, of this work, so that they can want to not just continue to do this work, but to inspire others in their communities and find those community leaders that you all have touched on that may not often have the opportunities to be heard, or may not often be in the spaces where they may feel like they can contribute to change.
Okay, Dory.
So when I think about the council mission of engage, education, and empower, and people that talked about, I think you might have talked about making connections and being a force multiplier, I'm thinking about who's the audience. And we've talked a lot so far about the communities being the audience, the public being the audience. I think that would be, you know, it's a question, but my proposal is I think that would be a mistake for that to be the only audience, or maybe even the main audience. I think the main audience should be government, for us to communicate and engage as government, private sector leaders, nonprofit leaders, and the media. That's, you know, that's a force multiplier. If we can convince federal agency leaders, federal policymakers, state leaders, local leaders to make changes, listen to their communities and make changes, private sector leaders to do that, major nonprofit leaders to do that, that's the power of change that this council can have. And I don't think that's traditionally how this council has worked. It's more been a, let's communicate to the public directly. And I look at the successful model of the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology, PCAST. It's very successful. They have huge influence on government policy and how the government approaches science and technology. They're not going out as their main task, going out to communicate to the public about science, although they do. They're really communicating back to the government. So I think that's just a question for us, and I would propose we think about those audiences as really important audiences. This council can take our messages and take messages from the community that we hear, and you, I think you said, be the ears and the voice, but then we go take those back to people who have the resources and have the decision-making ability to make a difference much far beyond we could do.
Anybody else have any comments on that? Storytelling, how we do it, our audiences?
Yeah. I think this is an opportunity maybe for pivot. I think even in a lot of the language around the messaging, there are assumptions, like even with the word awareness, there's an assumption that awareness isn't there, or there's an assumption that the folks we want to reach don't understand the importance. And I think we're conflating what we're seeing in terms of behavior and decisions. We're conflating the source and the cause of that. And we're using words like not aware or not important, when in reality it could be a competition of a variety of other factors. And so I think taking an opportunity doesn't have to be long, doesn't have to require too much time, but just taking an opportunity to be really explicit and intentional about understanding what's driving decision and behavior for where we want to see things change. And I think I agree. I don't disagree with that. The audience can be a wider array of folks, but for the community members in particular, understanding that there's a construct and a relativity to all of this, and moving away from that and getting really intentional about where do they assign currency and value. Again, it may not be you don't understand something's important, but it may not be a priority for you because safety or your livelihood is that priority. So I think it's about, and I know that can get very theoretical, but I really, really think we have an opportunity to move out of the construct and the theory and get very, very clear about what matters to people, what's driving their decisions, and leveraging that specifically around how we message and communicate. I think we would see a real difference.
I agree in much of what Kahina just said. One of the things that I think we are encountering is a polarized world in where for half or almost half of the population, whatever government says, I'm not going to do it because the government is saying. And so how do we create the powerful stories that share how nutrition helps, how good nutrition helps, how activity helps, instead of a prescription from the government. And at the same time, we cannot prescribe without having the safe spaces for people. So I was really encouraged by the conversation that we heard earlier about walkable and safe cities and the engaging of majors. I was in Paris 10 days ago, and it is more likely that you're going to die under a bicycle that runs you over and not a car, because they are making Paris a city of bicycles. But I have yet to see that happening anywhere in the U.S. We're creating little bike lanes that are made for people to die by a car that has no other way to pass unless going into the bike lane. Like we have to really, if we're going to be stating a message, we need to make sure that we're pairing the message with access to the message that we're asking people to go for.
I think that's why when I look at, I agree, but that's why when I look at what we need to do, I mean, going to the government, and not that I don't agree, but we all, I feel like, are on the ground. Like we're doing on the ground work. And to her point, what you just said about half the population won't do it just because the government says. So we all have access to networks. And whether it's one person that reaches another one person, 10, whatever, like it just multiplies. So that's where getting intentional, the word intentional keeps coming up. That's where getting intentional is important, because once we figure out what it is that we want to communicate, I communicate my circle, you communicate, you all the way down the line, and all of a sudden it's spread. But it's also supported with action, because everything that we do, you're already doing action. But what this does is it gives us an opportunity to amplify the same message to different populations. And all of a sudden, and I don't know if that answers the question of, how do you measure success? But if we all, just using it, if we all tweeted the same thing at the same time, the impact is, like the statistics from the impact of that message are a lot higher than you doing it at 9 o'clock, I do it at 10 o'clock, 11, and so forth. So I think just finding the intentionality, but majority of us are on the ground. So I don't want to lose that, because that's where the work is done. And when you have the relationship and people they've already brought into each of us. They've already brought in, they know we support them, the stories that we garner, we have the relationship. So how do we build off of those relationships? And maybe, I'm in Indianapolis, but now we got somebody in Washington, D.C. that tweeting the same thing that I'm tweeting, that's sharing the same story from little old Indianapolis to, oh man, you're in D.C., oh, you're in California, oh, you're, like, that doesn't really happen that much. And so I think being able to cross some of the stories that we already have, but trying to figure out, okay, we have the story, but now what's the action? So what is it that we really want to see done that we can build on?
I have a question for you, Rachel, which is, we heard about the fitness program, and we spent more time, some of us yesterday, learning about that reimagining of the program. What other assets historically have the council been invested in pushing, and what expectation is there or desire on the part of our partners to help push things that are already in the works?
So I think, there's a couple answers to that. One, definitely, as you've all said, you are on the ground. You have diverse networks that the federal government doesn't have, and that is incredibly important. You are articulate and wonderful speakers who can share messages of things that the government wants to share with others in ways that we as the federal government cannot. So, and I think Tamika's point about consistent messaging, be it from the federal government, be it collective messaging that we all decide as a group as imperative to share, that is something that, the council has been, in various ways, and different councils do it differently, and the way they, might elevate those messages. And I think things change and evolve as time changes. The initial councils did not have social media. It's a different world now in how how messages are communicated. But I think that is something, for sure that is important. The Presidential Youth Fitness Program was one program that was kind of championed by the council, but that was initiated many years ago, and it has been, a very powerful tool and a recognizable tool. It's an asset of the President's Council. And so I think it's important. But it's evolving, and everything we do is evolving. And so I think we need to think collectively about, what is the message that we want to share? And then how do we share it? And then other ways that the council has been very powerful is through partnerships. And that is something, there's been lots of examples where they partnered with, media companies or other companies to have events and to, try to take a message that the federal government has created and the council has, wanted to elevate, and then partnering with just other private organizations or nonprofits that can then disseminate that message. So that's another conversation I would love to have, is who are those key partners that we can, through all of your networks, that we can leverage and bring into the fold. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's...
To that point, Rachel. Oh,
go ahead.
To that point, Rachel, and I think we can be messengers. I actually see this as a both and. I don't think that we are always the messenger. Within public health, for example, in looking at the public health system, there are times in which the health departments, whether it's state or local level, where those health officials or that health workforce is the messenger. And there are other times where the trusted messenger actually needs to be the community leader, the faith-based leader. And I think actually that will just amplify the influence and reach that the council can have. So it's actually being even more nuanced and recognizing the assets of the communities to say, we can step back, and maybe it's that we're bringing the council there to help bring greater attention, but we don't actually have to be the voice. And in other cases where indeed, by us being the voice, by us having that credibility in the community and being on the ground, that it's going to help a community that actually has not had the power of voice, not to replace or displace their voice. I think that's critically important too, that we don't displace any assets of a community that already exists, but that we're there to truly support them. And I think that's what so many are bringing to the table is that connection in community and having the nuance to understand what role do we specifically play if we're going to be really on the ground in communities themselves.
Yeah, I agree. It's powerful to pass the mic. Rachel, is there anything we can learn? How have other councils organized themselves? Like Tamika was like, should we split up in subcommittees? Does that let us, focus on the 3 areas, go deep, have some online meetings, come back with some recommendations for the whole body to consider? Or what do you have advice in that regard and how to organize?
Again, every council is very different, and it really is how much time and energy that all of you as council members have. But I think to that point, that is one very effective way to keep the conversation going and to really dig in on issues that we want to move the needle on.
This is Dr. O again. I'm going to continue to be bold here. I know I said that financial resources are not the only resources, but here is an idea. Just during the break, I had a conversation with someone that then shared that they give $15,000 grants to schools to do certain things. I think it would be great because from the past 2 days I've been here, I've heard many people talk about grants that they have, talk about funding opportunities they have, but I don't know that all of our communities know about that. So I think one potential sort of opportunity could be if there are individuals, organizations that are providing financial resources, we then can disseminate those resources to the communities that we're in. Because in terms of practicality, in terms of timing, we don't have a lot of time, right? But there are people, I mean, it's, you know, as an academic physician, when I was in sort of my very, very early days, I didn't know, I had some colleagues that all the medical students went to work with them because they had money. And it was like, where did you get that money, right? And if you don't know where sort of opportunities are, even though it's not all about money, it's very hard to create change when you don't have finances. And we've talked about the social determinants of health. We've talked about the disparities that were just exacerbated during the pandemic. And unfortunately, at the end of the day, the money to be able to then implement and sustain programs is what continues to then perpetuate the iniquities that we have. And so if there are people that don't necessarily have the connection to the community, if there are organizations that do want to then implement change, but they have not been able to make that connection, perhaps that's a way that we could be a conduit. I mean, if there are 3 organizations that say, through the President's Council, we want to award 5 $10,000 grants that then fit this, and our task is then to go out and find 10 organizations that fit that, and then they get funded. Because we are all in different places, but if we at least can say, all right, we're going to then all look through these 25 applications that we get, and then we'll have a rubric that scores them, and then we'll choose 10, and then you empower the communities to do what it is that they do, that we cannot all be in their communities, but we can give them resources. We can try to make this something sustainable, right? I'm going bold here. I don't know if this council's ever had an endowment, but then that could then help subsequent councils that come together.
So that is where the National Fitness Foundation that comes in to support the council. As federal government, we haven't done that. Ooh. But that does bring me to another question that I would really love to, think about is, we've all talked about individuals and other organizations that are doing really good work in communities. And part of, in the past, the council has had awards to recognize these individuals and communities. And so just thinking like, how do, getting an award from the council is, something that is very meaningful and has been in the past. So in thinking that, like, how would we want to lift up or recognize communities that are doing the work that you all have spoken about and championed?
This is
you can pivot to anything.
a great question, but finishing on some of the ideas, I mean, we didn't begin, and I don't know you, but I already feel tired and overwhelmed. Because the big answer is going to be not what we are able to do today, but when 2 years from now, we look back, was this a good moment just to take a photo and to add something else to all our curriculums? Or we were able to move the needle. And already we put out there good ideas. But this is a challenge I'm putting in front of you. Whatever happens is going to be only as good as the time you dedicate. And if some of you think we saw Arnold Schwarzenegger, I was able to interview him the other day for a podcast, and because my life is like Forrest Gump, I can say now I call him a friend. Yes, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Governor Schwarzenegger went to every single state. He took his role seriously like nobody ever took that role. Did he move the needle? Yes, he did. So the challenge we have is we're going to be lost because what we have in front of us is almost the opportunity to rewrite the laws of the land, to empower through food and fitness the lives of every American that right now has no voice. Man, now it got difficult. Now be on the skin of our senators and congressmen, that we all have a tendency to finger point when you are from one party or the other for all the problems we face. But now, let's say you have the power to improve the life of those people you know from your communities. What would you do if you had the power? Now is when it gets complicated. And what I will say is that big problems usually have very simple solutions. We are only the ones that overcomplicate it by overthinking it. And I just will say, let's go to the national strategy. And let's go to support physical activity for all. And how do we do that? Well, we talk about engagement in the community, boots on the ground, right? Who wins the game? The one is on the floor. Even the people cheering from the sidelines, they play a role too. You can be the player or you can be the cheerleader on the sides. Today we saw an amazing young man, I forgot the name because my brain is like Dory, that we saw that he created a business, small, but a business in War 8. That guys like me, we didn't go to War 8 because they told us, don't go over there. Why? Because it's no place you want to go. Really? I've never felt more at home like in War 8. That young man opened a gym so his people, my people, could have a place, because also low-income people should have access to the gym that seems only the high-income people get. So let me bring and finish that simple idea. Shouldn't be the role of this council that we have the ear of the president. I want to believe I'm here because I want to believe president is going to get our ideas. And if we feel he's not getting it, we are going to go and knock on his door with permission of the Secret Service. Yes. And we're going to get to senators and congressmen, and we're going to tell them, you have a good idea here and there, but now we have a better one that is going to make it holy. We should be bringing, today we saw National Park Service. National Park Service to talk about food? Brilliant. I've been saying that we need to bring all the government to solve problems. We got the Department of Agriculture, which all of you know that I want to change the name to Food and Agriculture, because until we don't take food seriously, that means that we cannot fix the problems we see through food. But then we saw transportation and we saw health. Why we don't create a recommendation that the SBA, part of what we are recommending for fitness, sports and nutrition, that will be empowering businesses in low-income communities across America, that will have people like him giving the option to those low-income families to be as healthy as the richer folks. Now let's keep bringing it. Today you saw a small business in that same place we visit through the SBA too. But we saw a market. How many markets, how many communities in America don't have a food market? How many? Today you saw one in Anacostia, in War 8. This is also part of the fitness and nutrition. What if we go and we knock on the door and we bring senators here to this council and congressmen, ones that are already with good ideas, but we push for closing the gap, bringing those people that are opening food markets in poor communities across America. We give them voice through this council, and we close the gap between what's happening with folks in the ground, what's happening with folks in the Senate and in Congress, the White House, and the ideas that us combine. This is only some of the hundreds of ideas that all of you, all of us combined, we have. But the bigger message here is we need to be bold to a degree. We need to understand that not everything is going to be possible. But we need to dream high, pick the things that we believe are low-hanging fruit, and move ahead. We have sports owners here. We have sports legends here, and others that we can be bringing that they are not here. Let's make sure that every NBA baseball player, I don't want them to play anymore. I want them to cook. And then let me, chefs like us and others and musicians, we're going to be the ones actually playing the sports. And let's all start working together. Let's make sure every arena in America serves better quality food in some places. Healthy corners, better corners, nutritious corners with vegetables and fruits. And let's make sure that people listen, because, you know, to have some fame because you are a good three-point shooter, it's good. Use it. It's a Trojan horse. We need to use that. So anyway, those were only a few of the things I've been listening from all of you, that we need to be trying to hit it out of the park. And if we don't worry, because we are still trying to bat it, and the ball will get somewhere. But just don't be, because I've been sharing with you, I've been already like, my God, what the heck I signed for? I feel I'm going to be a failure before I began. Yeah. So that's the big challenge we all have with this amazing question of how are we going to feel we are successful? Well, we are going to be picking up things that all of you agree that these things you can bring. And then, guys, we need to go batting. We need to go play. And at the end, success will mean how much effort, smartness, contacts, connections, a little bit of passion, an accent in my case. And that will be the meaning of success. And your question was?
I think you made a challenge to everyone. So now I'm just going to sit back and
But
see.
the question was, because that was important.
Oh, my question, yes. I was just saying, how do we recognize communities and individuals who are doing the work that we all champion?
And just to add, we need to be recognizing those people that are forgotten and voiceless. So whatever all of you, all of us, we come up with, that is something like we recognize through the president, still, the work that people that you know in your communities, that during years they've been doing it silently, things that actually work, and somehow they are heroes in their own community. Today in this Central Kitchen, you heard about Dorothy Bell. That woman is legend, legend. Those and Dorothy Bells of America, Dorothy Bells of the world, are the people that this award needs to be recognizing. And this will be a huge power all of us we will have. We need to invent it, reinvent it, or bring something from the past, including that song, which we all have musicians. I have plenty of them. What was the song? Go Chicken Fat Go. Maybe we don't need to reinvent new things, but if that worked, you know, if I could make a motion, but I can, I will change this to the President's Council of Sport, Fitness, Dancing and Nutrition, because already that was an amazing idea. I danced a lot when I was younger, and I feel now that I need to dance more. I lost 40, 50 pounds, and I got a lot of help. I know it's folks like me that if they are overweight like I did, they will not have the same chance to lose 40, 50. I lost 40, 50 pounds because I have everybody around me making sure I lose 40, 50 pounds. But what happened about the people don't have the support I got? Our challenge and our role is to make sure that in the same way in the last 2 years of the pandemic, I lost 50 pounds, that we find ways that every American, every folk can achieve the same. For that, we need to think out of the box. Dancing, to me, is just a fascinating way, in a serious way, that elderly people and others can also be moving. So we need this type of brilliant, bold ideas that actually they are so pragmatic and so logical. So.
Yeah.
Sorry, Barbie.
Thank you.
Sorry.
It's okay, thank you. I just, I felt so moved by what Jose said, and to tie in some of what Kahina said and Maribel said. I too relate to dance, especially dancing bomba and plena. That was how I grew up. And even with what Tamika said about having the subgroups, what is sparking in my mind is I would love to have sort of that subgroup that focuses on nutrition. Like my expertise is in food insecurity. But I would also love to have ties to maybe the other subgroups of how to connect, because speaking about audiences, my audience are the people who are still living in poverty, the people who are trying to make it out, the community leaders who are searching for the platform, but they might not be the same audience that Maribel has, that Kahina has, that Tamika has. So finding the ways of, my focus is on nutrition, but how can we work together to then bring the community who may not have that focus on dance, on fitness, because they're, as Kahina said earlier, so focused on their livelihood and things of that nature. Like, how can we bring those things together and touch the audiences, like Jose said, that usually feel voiceless, but to make sure that we're empowering them, not just in my specific way of expertise, but to incorporate everyone else's as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond here to that. And coming back to why language, the messaging, I think it's connected to the messaging. And I used the word pivot, didn't mean to, and it's bold, but I really, really think that introducing language where that is considerate of the currency and the prioritization and the perspective of the people we want to reach most is going to be extremely impactful. physical education even. I heard this yesterday, like target populations are skipping PE. It's there every day, and I heard about schools being an amazing vehicle. But, they're not skipping school dances, right? But seriously, I'm excited, and however I can support, use the vehicle, or give examples or opportunity for the medium to do that, I think I'm absolutely game to do it. However, the messaging and the language is going to have to, we'll have to give it some consideration. Is the best way to put that. I also wanted to respond to the awards and recognition and lift up what Dr. O said, because I think awards and recognition are great when paired with resources that can be utilized for actionable, real decisions and behaviors. So yeah, I wanted to just add that. I think those two to me are so in sync. It's award, recognition, but through this idea or this system can actually be accompanied by real-time resources.
Another area that I think we could recommend, or I think from the health sector perspective, we have made it extremely easy for prescribing medications and drugs through electronic prescribing. But we haven't made it easy enough for health systems to prescribe the connection with community-based organizations that are addressing the social determinants of vulnerability in health. We are doing some work in North Carolina with the North Carolina 360 program, but it still is clunky. Because what? Because there hasn't been funding behind it to really make the connections that the pharma industry had put together to do this. But it would be amazing for me as a family doctor to say, here, prescription, electronic record, prescribing to Food Lion, where in this place you can buy the food that are better for the management of the diabetes, or if we are having people have to go somewhere to pick up certain things to then take somewhere else, when we could actually be directly electronically directing those efforts.
So speaking about sort of subcommittee actions and kind of rolling up your sleeves and doing work, I think there's two things I would propose, and I'd be really happy to work on with anyone if we want to do it. I think one is what Jose mentioned, which is a subcommittee on highlighting community successes in private sector entrepreneurship and innovation, and then linking that to messages to the White House and the agencies in Congress and policies that will support that more. And it can be uplifting them, giving them prizes, telling their stories. But this, Jose and I did a task force report for the White House conference, and one of the 6 domains we emphasized was a national strategy to uplift innovation and entrepreneurship in the food system. And that wasn't really captured in the national strategy, I think, the way we had it. And so that can be built into the national strategy, but that could be something we could take on, is really uplifting these stories, this person we met, and then bringing congressmen and senators and agency leaders to them. So I think that would be really exciting, both in food and fitness. And then secondly, food as medicine is a massive, massive national trend right now. Healthcare, employer wellness, every major retailer, almost every major company is coming and saying we need a food as medicine strategy. So I think this council could have a subset of people working on what are the barriers, what are the opportunities, how do we advance food as medicine so that your vision, can it's not that far away. We're getting there. So I think those are two things I would suggest. Yeah.
I think on the nutrition side, and when we talk specifically about language, I think dance is a form of exercise. I think a lot of people don't necessarily define it as a form of exercise. So it's important how we define certain things. And it's important that we use certain words and that the general public is using certain words to describe certain things. So when we talk about nutrition in general, I think language matters greatly, because I think we have an assumption that everybody knows what good nutrition is. And so when we talk about food as medicine, we know what that is from a medical perspective, but do people on the ground really know what food as medicine means? Do people on the ground really know what good nutrition is? And if me in the Olympic and Paralympic community, if we're having elite athletes and we're having to sit down and talk to them about what good nutrition is and what they need to be eating to fuel their bodies, and when their body is their livelihood, like we don't survive if we're not able to move efficiently and effectively. And if we in this population who has nutritionists, who have all those resources, don't necessarily know what good nutrition is, do we really expect the general public and to everybody to really have the same understanding of what good nutrition is? And also, do we have that same perspective culturally? So I think whenever we talk about nutrition solutions, we have to bear that in mind is, are we using the language to make sure people know what the good nutrition is and what they need to do to fuel their bodies efficiently?
Thank you for what you just said, Elena, because you just reminded me how hard it is for me to refer patients to nutritionists. How often it's almost impossible to get into a nutritionist that will either take their insurance, or if they are uninsured, there is a waiting list of months and months to be able to get to that conversation.
This is super random, but you were just talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Going to every single state. How, with what we have 29 council members, so it's doable based on geographic areas, regional areas that we live in. How can we touch every single state?
And what would we do? And how would we want to touch it collectively?
Yeah. And I mean, could it be a workshop? Could it be a one-day thing that we're doing specific in one area, you know?
I mean, we're dreaming up how to get all of you to Minnesota, of course. But there's a lot of things we could do together, no matter what the stop is. And it could take different shape in every area. But you're all officially invited to Minnesota.
But even with that, like I'm Midwest. I can drive here, I can drive there, I can drive. So like based on where we live, there's areas you can drive down and back in one day. And there's access points, so maybe if you live close to Ohio, you might, hey, I'm gonna drop into that event, I'm coming to that one. And then if I'm gonna be in California for something else, if I wanna drive to an event that's going on, I mean, I just think that there's ways that this could materialize, but
Yeah.
topic-wise, what is that?
We can fan out.
Yeah.
To whatever's, you know, we were just sort of dreaming up, maybe it's your idea about getting the Timberwolves and the Lynx on the court, or us on the court and them cooking, or whatever it is. We can go to, you know, we can hit a lot of our themes in every stop we do, I think, or every step we make.
I just want to, oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I just have one request to add to your request. The territories should be included too.
I like that.
Territories.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just to go on that and kind of back to the recognition aspect of this, what I think is really important in touching all 50 states, I think we can go there. I think we can do awards. We can do lifetime awards. Those are all fantastic. Those are very singular to one person. But I think what we've talked about is we've talked about people's stories. We've talked about people on the ground. We've talked about people in communities. And we've talked about the accessibility we have to engage with people now with social media and with all these different aspects. I think that we can touch all 50 states. We can do that through recognition of individuals. Like we've gone back. I'm trying to think of what everyone has said is we can sometimes be the platform, but sometimes the community leader can be the platform. We can show them the recognition on the individual level because that is empowering to them right there. That's award in itself. We can touch all 50 states. We can do that weekly. We can do that whatever. Like you said, we have 29 people here. I guarantee we each know 10 amazing people we could pull right now and put an individual story out there that just gets launched. That's an empowering moment for the community that develops what they do, perpetuates what they do. And again, awards are fantastic. That is in many ways an award. That's a way for us to touch every segment, and to show, again, that people are seen, people are heard, and that we want their story to be heard, and we want them to tell their story. So is that something as simple as a little blip that we all put out on social media, or the community leaders put out? Again, because I think what we're doing is small steps. We're creating change through that support and empowerment. And if we can support a community like we did today and elevate the gym and what we've seen other people in other communities outside of DC could say, hey, I could do that in Baltimore. Hey, I could do that in Aurora, Colorado. I could do that in San Jose, whatever it may be. But I think that that's something in talking about recognition. I think we should take the time to actually find ways to recognize the individuals for the empowerment as well as the awards.
Can I just add one thing to build on that? Also, to your point, meeting people where they are, and I mean, why not introduce something with a TikTok challenge, right? I'm not sure, and I know we're not banning TikTok or anything, but the idea of meaning, thinking outside of where people we want to reach, we got to go where they are. We got to reach them where they are already. The idea of trying to get them to come to an event or to try to initiate something that the single greatest way we're going to reach more people is find where they are and go to them. So whether it's on a social media platform, I mean, thought it was interesting in the orientation briefing, there's one URL for us to follow on Twitter, which is fitness.gov. But Twitter, I mean, aren't there lots of us? We should have an Instagram page. We should have, maybe not a TikTok channel. I don't know how that's supposed to go, but we got to go where the audiences are, where the people are, where the young people are.
All right, I'm mindful of time. Oh, yes, please.
With that mindful of time, this is actually not about recognition, but is about what we heard when actually, Stephanie, you asked the federal panel about what's the one thing that they would ask for, and it was the access, resources, and awareness. We've talked in several dimensions about awareness. I just wanted to throw it out there. It's not something we have to resolve today, but is on the access point, and Chef, you raised this with regards to the national strategy. There are many recommendations within the national strategy that are getting at access and equity, that are policy and systemic changes, where, for our organization, we're a nonpartisan public health policy and advocacy organization here in DC. What we're hoping to do is educate and inform and raise the awareness of policymakers to actually help create the conditions in communities that they have equitable access to physical activity that's safe and convenient and healthy nutrition. And so there is power, I think, of this council, whether it's through the media or other platforms, to elevate the voice of access and equity, in addition to, and without getting into the partisanship of policies, but actually raising awareness of these are broad systemic issues that also need to be addressed, so that we can be doing both the connection with community as well as the accountability of policymakers who have it as their responsibility to assure that their communities are healthy and have access to health and opportunity.
Jose, do you want to provide some closing reflections as a
Yeah. Out of the blue, I don't quote, everybody that knows, I will explain the life of the world through Spain, right? Very chauvinistic. But so here is a quote from a Frenchman, and I'm a cook, and it's a lot of rivalry between French and Spanish cooks. I mean, we're next to each other. So for me, a Spanish guy used to be quoting a French, has to be a good quote. So this is a guy called Brillat Savarin, 1826. Is the guy that said, tell me what you eat, and I will tell you who you are. Powerful. I have a first edition, and I bought it very young, and the guy that sold me the book didn't even know what he was selling me. Imagine the power of a book written in 1826 with this kind of fascinating idea. But he had a phrase, call it a commandment, a phrase that was even more powerful than this one of tell me what you eat and I'll tell you who you are. He said, the future of the nations will depend on how they feed themselves. I want to believe like when he brought that was not just feeding food itself, the nutrition that gives you, but feeding the hopes of the people. Feeding where everybody can dream that they can provide for themselves and their families, that they can be healthy, that they can be prosperous, that they can be fit to achieve every dream they want. So I think this race, to me, in a way, in a very deep way, is what is bringing it home. I do believe in the weeks and months ahead, we have an amazing team that if we are smart, this team is not going to make every one of the dreams that we put together here in the table and the ones of the communities. But there's going to be few ones that if we are persistent and we keep knocking on the door, some of us, because it's the first time we do it. Others, because you've been doing it for years and you have so many experiences. And sometimes probably experiences that brought you frustration. I think we have to keep knocking. We have to keep raising the voices. We have to keep repeating the old ideas that sometimes they were forgotten. We need to bring those ideas from the past. We need to bring the ideas that are working in our communities and speak and whisper on the ear of the president, like if he is listening to every one of our voices, that at the end is not our voices, but the voices of the people that they must be heard. I do believe that's the role of this council, and I do believe watching all of you bringing all these ideas from far and right here, and all of you that travel with your families, even taking a red eye to be here with your two amazing little ones, and you show commitment to what the president wants to do. That food is not a privilege for few, but food and fitness and communities that they can have that is the way to dream of a better America tomorrow. So thank you very much for being here, guys, and thank you very much for you and your team for leading us and make us look good in our first day. But again, the pressure is in our shoulders. And I don't know how much we will achieve the next 2 years, but I know it's ideas here that together we're going to move them forward. And anything we move the needle forward, I think it'll be worth the effort of everyone. So thank you.
And I just want to say how grateful I am for each and every one of you. The expertise you bring, the ideas you bring, the passion you bring. I have no doubt that you are going to make a tremendous difference. And I am just really excited to take the ideas that you have. I mean, I think, my takeaways from this is that we will form some subcommittees to really dig in, and we can talk about exactly what those are and the scope. But I think that there is a lot that we can do, as we've heard from the National Fitness Foundation, as we heard from our wonderful federal panelists. This is an important moment, and we have to capitalize on it. And I just have no doubt that you are the ones to do this and to help us. So with that, I just want to thank all of our audience members, both here in the room, those that were watching online, all of my amazing, amazing coworkers who are all running around the room, who brought us coffee when we needed coffee, and just who really are tremendous public stewards, and they work every day to make sure that so many of the things that we do from this office get amplified. And so just can't thank them enough. And my boss over there, Admiral Paul Reed, just for his voice, I really appreciate it. So with that, I will close out the meeting and just thank all of you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Produced by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.